any education provider that is interested in running a practicum, you need to dedicate yourself. When I just said 40 hours a week, if you're the person that thought, oh, I'm a quick study, I can pick that up in 30, you're not the person I'm pulling in.
Episode 9 of Market Moves with Mark and Jeff. Today, we'll be celebrating bleeding edge entrepreneurialism, which I love uniquely here. When we started this podcast and this series covering PAREA, really we are discussing alternative pathways to getting your experience to become an appraiser. And Jeff and I both felt that we would be remiss without discussing the third alternate pathway that has only been put in practice in one state, Mississippi, but is gaining a lot of traction and having a lot of success. We will explore that pathway coming up.
With that, we'll invite Melissa in to shed light on all things Practicum. Melissa, as we kick things off, anything you'd like to share with us about your background and kind of what led you to diving into helping fill this Practicum option that is available to those aspiring to become appraisers?
Hi, good morning, Mark, and good morning, Jeff. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Yes, I look forward to sharing some things with you today. A little bit about myself. I am a 32-plus year appraiser, certified residential. I am also an 18-plus year education provider. I've been providing CE for almost 2 decades now. I am in multiple states and actually across the nation in some arenas as well with education. I'm a national speaker. And the thing that led me, though, my former position that led me to where we are today is I've been a VA appraiser for, I think, since I was 2. But from that, the Department of VA had an opening for someone to be the senior appraiser in Mississippi, which the position entailed, recruiting to the VA for the VA panel, quality control, retention, as well as other duties, doing reconsiderations of value, that sort of thing. So for that portion of my career, and I loved being a federal employee, Department of VA runs through my veins. I will tell you, I love veterans. I love doing things for veterans. But that's where the real seed happened, because I had difficulty finding appraisers in a third, 33% of the counties in Mississippi had 0 appraisers or 1. Well, we know what that can do. That can undermine the economic stability of a county, that if perhaps someone wanted to do a refinance or a purchase and there were no appraisers, or there was a long wait. So that's the career path, or the former position I had, that helped me to identify where we had need in our state.
Well, it seems like any success story has kind of a root in a beginning, or what it is that leads to sometimes a path that you maybe don't anticipate, or that is kind of a fun ride. You look back and thought, man, I didn't think this was going to go that direction. And then it turns out, lo and behold, it actually did. So I've been around, regulation, appraisers, becoming appraisers, for a lot of years as well. And by the way, rural appraising is kind of speaking my language. I know counties that are kind of, meeting that description that you've got, that don't have an appraiser population at all. So I think as we kick this off, Melissa, it would be helpful to understand, maybe just from a high level, what is Practicum from your perspective, and how does it fit relative to the supervisor trainee model and the PAREA model that we know are options to getting experience to becoming licensed appraisers? What is Practicum, maybe at a high level from your perspective?
Okay. Practicum at a high level, what we really want to focus on is this, that in 2008, that's quite a few years ago, 2008, The AQB, the Appraiser Qualifications Board, devised the practicum, and they outlined it basically outlined what a practicum is, and that a state has the authority to approve a coursework, okay? When there's a need in their state, the state has this option to approve a coursework that aligns with AQB's outline, okay? So that's the beginning of it all. Now, let's talk about the practicum for just a second. What did the AQB say about it? It's experience hours. It's not just education, but it's experience hours chock full of real education. You know, Jeff and Mark, maybe your path wasn't what Melissa's was, but I had two excellent supervisors back 32 plus years ago when it was 2 years of apprenticeship, supervisor training model. Excellent appraisers, but they didn't teach me. It's not a bad reflection on them. It's just the way the model was designed. Supervisor training is designed as an apprenticeship. Watch me and do what I do. Learn from what I do. But as we both know, that's not optimum. Now, did we all get licensed that way? Well, we did. We had to self-educate. We had to choose wise continuing education programs, right? We had to partner ourselves. All of these things I'm talking about come under competency, don't they? So we had to do that for ourselves. That's what the practicum does within that 1,000 hours of experience that you gain. We start with USPAP. USPAP isn't like a disease that you learn about eventually. We start with USPAP. The very first day, you want to know what our lesson is? The preamble. Why is it the preamble, Melissa? Because that's the beginning of USPAP. So this pathway is a mixture of virtual training, synchronous, as we're doing right now, you and I speaking, not, asynchronous when someone's going to watch your recording later. Our classroom time is virtual. I also record every session so that each one of the trainees or students that are in the program can have a 24/7 availability of a recording library. They can go back and say, what did we learn this morning? Now, we do that virtually. Then they're given homework assignments. And then we also meet. All of our feet are on the same dirt at one time. And we learn about the house, the construction, the neighborhood, the market area. Those two aren't synonymous. There's so much strengthening that is done with the on-site training. So we do both of those. So this practicum pathway that I've developed the coursework. And when I say I, please allow me to name the individuals that also worked with course development on this. I'm going to start with your father, Craig Morley. Okay. Mr. Greg Stevens, Miss Diana Jacob, Miss Pam Teal. Who am I missing? Mr. Tim Anderson. I cannot miss Tim Anderson. Folks, these are the ones that behind the scenes, you might see Melissa's face right now, but you need to know those guys were behind the scenes working hard with me to make this a success. Development. They worked hard on development. They also helped with implementation. So that's what makes this practicum so unique and so individual.
Fantastic. So Melissa, we've been covering a lot on this podcast, well, specifically alternative pathways, but we have been focused on the PAREA alternative pathway in our first several episodes, and wanted to have you on here to be rounding out the options that are available. So would you help us understand the differences as you see it from what you are doing and what PAREA is bringing to the table?
One thing I want to say, and I want to make it abundantly clear, I am a high proponent of PAREA and have been for the 7 or 8 years that the AQB worked very tirelessly to get this to the point that it was a pathway. I am a high proponent of PAREA. It is so much robust education, and that's just what I know about it. I haven't sat through the PAREA, because I think if I sat through the entire PAREA program, my jaw would drop at how awesome it is. Okay. This practicum is different. Okay. In that it revolves around practice. This practicum is different in that it's not self-paced. The cohort that I pull in, the number of students that I pull in will work in a block and will move forward much like someone would do in a collegiate environment. You move forward as a class. It's not self-paced. I think there's a lot of strength in that. I think I keep the ratio of student to instructor at a very advantageous rate, because I want individual attention to each one of those that are in the program. I want to be able to remediate when necessary. And let me give you like a simple example. Let's just say this morning I had a lesson on, we'll go with something simple, jurisdictional exception. Oh, how many appraisers just said, what the heck is that? Okay, because it's not as familiar to us until we need it, right? Okay, so let's say I'm talking about jurisdictional exception rule this morning, and I give them a lesson on it. Well, then later that day, I might get a call from one of my students, and they say, you know, I didn't quite understand this. Can you explain it? Well, typically I'll say, let's jump on a Zoom. I open a Zoom and I'll tell them, do you mind if I record this? In the event someone else needs the explanation, I allow them the privacy of one-on-one tutoring if that's what they prefer. Or I would say, may I share this? If they say yes, bam, I'm recording it and I'm sharing it with the rest of the folks that may have that same question. It may be I didn't explain it enough. So I give them the option for private one-on-one tutoring or sessions. Again, it may be, let's just say we're discussing, now we're in development. Okay, we're in standard 1 and we're talking about, you know, problem identification. Let's just say I did a morning session on that virtual and I did an evening session on that virtual. But the next day, I'm getting 2 or 3 of them are asking me questions. That triggers Melissa to say, you know what? I think we're going to back up. We're going to go over that one again. Perhaps I didn't communicate it well enough. So you see, we have flexibility within this. That and I am available to them, not 24/7, I guarantee you, but I am available to them. Hold on to your hat, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. And you may say, wow, that's a lot of hours. It is a lot of hours. Interested in running a practicum, you need to dedicate yourself to it. This isn't like, oh, wow, easy money, teach a few CE classes and move on. No, they become offspring to me. They become my children, as I like to laughingly refer to them. And I tell them, some of you are 5-pound babies, some of you are 45-pound babies. Okay? So there's so much to this that differs from PAREA, that extremely differs from the supervisor training model. But here's the most important thing. It's working. Not only is it working, it's working well. My folks are passing first time far surpass the national average. far surpass first time test taking success.
Well, that has to speak volumes, Melissa, because I what I hear you saying is you're kind of marrying the standards that we have in USPAP with the qualifying education that appraisers take. Now, just to be clear, this isn't in lieu of qualifying education. All of Practicum students have to take the same qualifying education as any other person. But to be able to marry that to where it's not just working with a supervisor on live files day in and day out. It's not the Practicum, it's not the PAREA, which is, I think you point out, is kind of a self-paced course, but this is a group learning together, moving forward together. In that context, I'm kind of curious, what's an average or a typical class size? I mean, how many people do you find yourself working with at a given time?
That changes, okay? Mm-hmm. That does change for each program. And I'll tell you what I look at, okay? Number one, I'm pulling folks from across the state. I am focusing on rural areas. Let me be abundantly clear with that. I don't go into whoever wants to be in this program, come on. I am really responsible as far as looking at the numbers in my state, looking at the areas of need. Areas of need. Now, I look at that. I look at where are they coming from my state. That's going to matter too, as far as the length of the program, the way that we're going to meet, how many times we're going to meet, on site, and where we're going to meet on site. There's so much management that goes into this. Is not, I woke up one morning and I decided, okay, this has been a, let's see, we're coming up on, no, we're past April. So I would say this is a 4-year endeavor, completely focused endeavor, not, gee, I'm thinking. This is completely focused working on this.
We're all getting to that stage, I'm afraid. No, I'm just curious about how many you're working with at a time, like how many people are in a class.
Okay, so I allow where they're coming from in the state, stopping to think, how much do they have to travel? Do I want to only focus on the top end of my state and only pick up, say, these 6 rather than 20 across the state? And then it's making it harder. I look at, are they full-time working? Do I need to help them? Now, not that I set the program around their other schedule, but I do let it become a factor in some decision-making, okay? Let's say I'm only taking on 6. Well, that also tells me how many instructors do I need besides myself. I'm the manager and I'm the main instructor. If I take on 6, how many instructors do I need as auxiliary instructors to that kick in on different topics? I'd say I'm running it with 20. Now, how many auxiliary instructors do I need? What part of the state are they in? How many have full-time jobs? How many have part-time jobs? I had one individual that was doing a full-time job and a part-time job and trying to go through this program. Now, I will say to you, she was not successful in finishing the program. So she didn't even get to the point that she could take a national exam because she was stretched too thin. Okay? I don't recommend that. I do not. This was something that was a life situation she could not change. So the number of individuals in the program is directly tied to probably 10 or 20 factors that I take in. You know, how many instructors will I need? What's the length of time I'm going to run this? You know, how much am I going to focus on the area of the state where we're going to meet? The numbers change. Now, what do I think is an optimum number? I think if you run anyone, not on your first run, not the first run out, okay? As with anything, we work out bugs. A 15 with the appropriate number of instructors. Well, your next question is, what's the appropriate number of instructors? A main instructor, a manager, and then probably 3 or 4 for a class that size. It is vital to have individualized attention. It is vital. If you turn it into simply let's go to a collegiate atmosphere. When we're together, we're going to interact. And other than that, I might answer your email. You're not going to be successful as a provider, and you're not going to be successful with your individuals. Now, that doesn't mean hit or miss. Someone might not pass an exam because lightning does strike, right? But I want to see full success every go round. So I set my students up for full success. I set myself up for full success.
Well, as you describe first, it's great to have you here because I feel like I'm learning as much as our audience will be on this call, and that's really what we're about here. A lot of times I come in knowing a topic well. This is one that I'm learning a lot on, so I really appreciate that. As I hear you describing what you are doing in practice, it feels like sort of a precise scalpel sort of approach. You saw a need coming into this. You are looking for an area that is looking for an appraiser, and then kind of trying to fill that need one way or another. Is that how you would describe it?
Well, I think you did a great job about that, except the only thing you left out is my superwoman cape. Okay. No, I think you did a very good job at describing that. I'm not just trying to put people into our profession. I'm not bringing in the masses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing in what's needed. And I'll say it this way. When I first developed this, and I brought it before, when I first developed the idea, let me say, and I brought it before my Mississippi Appraiser Licensing Board. And I said, here's what I identified, and here's how I can make that change. And, you know, if any of our audience knows Mr. Robert Prater, he has a very dry sense of humor, and he is a delightful individual. And he said, don't bring me another bad appraiser. He said, we are filled. I said, sir, I completely understand. We're on the same page. And then another thing that he told me, he said they're dying off and retiring off at a much faster rate than we're pulling in trainees. Our state is what I would call was in an emergency situation. That's slowly being taken care of. Slowly being taken care of. Okay. And I do say slowly because I'm not bringing in the masses, but I am bringing in quality individuals. I'll give you a simple example. One of my former trainees who is licensed, when she, exited out, she was licensed, and she said, I just don't have the confidence to hang out my own shingle. She said, I think I'm going to talk to some appraisers and see if I can work in their office and partner with them, percentage split. I said, you need to do what's comfortable for you. So she goes into this appraiser's office, an appraiser I know very well. And after about, I'd say probably 2 or 3 weeks, the appraiser asked her, why are you here? He said, you don't need me. He said, do you understand since you've been here, I've learned things from you? That's what my folks are coming out of this program. They're educated. They understand how to support adjustment, not how to make one, but how to make one and support it. As a market-driven adjustment. Oh, that's something new. So it gave her confidence to see, wow, this is like a 20-year plus appraiser telling me he's learned from me. Let's go to another situation. 2 of my individuals work with some personal appraiser friends of mine. Just last week, we were doing I was at their house having coffee one morning, and they said, do you know how much we've learned from them? And that makes me feel good, because that tells me, number one, my guys listened to what was presented to them, and they're in the field applying it. Mm-hmm. And They have leadership skills because they're saying, well, let me show you what Melissa showed me. Do you have another way? That's another thing I tell them. If you think learning from just me, you've got it all, you better throw that out. You need to learn from everyone. And I encourage them, don't take CE from me. Take it from someone else. Get their perspective. Grow your knowledge. Grow your knowledge.
Well, absolutely. And that rings true to me, Melissa. I had, the benefit of, you referred to my dad. I mean, I kind of sat in the corner and turned around and asked him questions all day long and pestered him till he wanted to kick me out, I think. But it wasn't just him in the office. He had an MAI that was doing commercial work. There were other residential appraisers there. And the broad perspective that you can gain by having more access to more than just a single individual as your, whether it's a mentor, an instructor, whatever roles, and usually it's more than one that they're filling. It's just valuable to have multiple perspectives as you try to learn this thing that is appraising, and that experience component is critical. As I hear you kind of describe this process, Melissa, I'm curious, how long on average would you say, because you're starting with a course, you're with a group of individuals that are identified. I think I'm hearing you say that there's kind of a structured approach to everybody moves forward together at about the same pace. I'm guessing there's not a single right answer here, but what are you seeing as far as an average time to from start to finish as far as filling the experience requirement goes in this program?
Okay. That varies. And again, as you know, I'm going to say that varies with the cohort that I take in. Okay. I have run this program in 6 months. I've run it in 9 months. I have run it in 7 months. It depends on who I've taken in, what I've gauged them as far as their ability to be teachable. Okay. We have different learning styles. I try to hit all of those because we all learn differently. I look at their background. What I like best, I will tell you, is a blank slate. A blank slate. I don't know anything about appraising. Wow, you're who I'm looking for. Because as we know, oftentimes we have other real estate professionals, maybe agents and brokers, that have a vast knowledge of appraising. However, it's from an agent broker perspective. It's not from a valuation expert perspective. We also I had one loan officer. They understood appraising from an underwriter's perspective. So it depends. The time frame depends on who's in my cohort, where they come from, what profession are they coming from. I've had several that are straight out of their 4-year degree. Wow, you're the best. You're perfect. Or I've had 2 pharmacists, and both of them said, we don't know anything about appraising. Well, guess what? You're pulling in. You are pulling in. So it does depend. The time frame does depend. Now, the AQB says those 1,000 hours cannot be gained in less than 6 months. But I will tell you this: if I run a 6-month program, my individuals need to commit 40 hours plus a week to me. Now, I'll tell you what I tell my folks when I'm interviewing them, because I interview them. I don't take anybody that calls me. Okay, the interview process is a little tough. I tell them, when I just said 40 hours a week, if you're the person that thought, oh, I'm a quick study, I can pick that up in 30, you're not the person I'm pulling in. But if when I said 40 hours plus a week, you thought, do I have 50 hours a week to dedicate to this? You're the person I'm pulling in. I just had a graduation ceremony just last week for my last class. And it was like the joke where they talked about the appraisals they worked 24 hours on, real clock hours. And they would joke, and she's only going to let us put 12 hours down on that paper on their experience log. So I make them put less time. What happens with that? That means you work longer and more. Do you think I'm just doing that? No, I'm doing that because it's the best approach. You dig deeper. My folks have work files with 50 plus documents in them. 50 plus documents. All right. They do a lot of research. They do a lot of support for their valuation conclusions. So all in all, when I'm doing my recruiting, that's where it all begins, is who's going to be in the program, how long I'll run it, and what part of the state we're meeting in and how we're going to meet.
Fantastic. So this is available in Mississippi specifically, correct, Melissa? Is it available anywhere else?
Well, what I will say to you is, yes, it is available elsewhere. Okay, I am not at liberty to discuss that. And I always tell people, I'm not going to tell someone else's story for them. Okay. When they're ready to reveal that, they'll do that themselves. Now, what I will tell you is nationwide, I am in licensing jurisdiction meetings all the time. I don't call them, they call me. They contact me. I have spoken with everyone from, I think, the janitor in a licensing jurisdiction to the senator that has legislated to have this in their state. I have everyone in between, board members, individual appraisers, individual trainees, administrative assistants, administrative executives, you name it. Everyone's interested in this because, number one, they see the statistics, they see the success rate, and they're embracing it. It is being embraced nationwide. Multiple states are poising themselves in their legislature now because you probably know this. Many licensing jurisdictions decided to go above AQB requirements for licensing. Well, any state that already aligns with AQB minimum criteria for licensing, they already, this practicum program, a practicum program is accepted already, done. If you align with AQB, already done. Now, what's the next step for a state? To hold in their hand the actual coursework.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, that's phenomenal. So it's 4 years of sort of you being a laboratory, it seems like. And, I love bleeding edge entrepreneurialism. And I really see that, you've seen a need for a long time and going out and filling it with a unique way. And we all learn from that and say, hey, this could work in a lot of different places. So hats off to you for doing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I can tell you this. We need education providers. I need education providers to contact me and say, I want to run a practicum in my state. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you someone else's story who's looking for someone right now to run a practicum in their state. But what I will do is I will work to set someone up. I will teach them how my program unfolds. I will teach them how I implement this. The managerial tools that I use, everything that's set up. Don't go out and reinvent the wheel unless you really want to.
So, you spoke about this at the beginning of our meeting here, and I wanted you to maybe expand on it because you might have particular insight to this, but you talked about certain counties not having appraisers at all. What happens in the extremes. I gather that you have sort of seen this stuff happen, being affiliated with VA and your other work. What ends up happening? Is it just you wait until someone is willing to do it? Does the fee just keep going up, or do you have to look for alternatives away from appraisers if there isn't one to fulfill it?
Okay, boy, you have certainly touched on the things that are real. Okay, let's just say, and I'll make up a county because I don't want to talk about a real county. Okay, Mississippi does not have a county called St. Tammany. So that's why I'm going to make that up. I'm going to just call St. Tammany since we don't have one of those. Let's just say there's no appraiser in St. Tammany. And you have I'll just use VA because this was a real situation for me. We have a veteran that says, I want to refi my house. Now, what are we doing? We're reaching out to anyone on the fee panel. We're reaching out to any qualified individual that isn't on the fee panel yet that may want to be. So that outreach begins. That doesn't work in 2 days, 3 days. All the while, the veteran's waiting and the veteran's waiting, okay, to use their benefit. We have to remember, VA loans are a benefit for the service that these men and women have provided to our great nation. They can't use their benefit. As the person trying to find someone, we may have to get someone out of that county. Now you ask, are they geographically competent? Is there a competency level there that aligns them with USPAC? Is there not? Do they need to partner with someone? You see, so again, more time, more time, more time. Are they going to say, well, I can go do that one, but do you understand it's XX miles away from my office location? Can I increase that fee? Well, we all know VA sets its fees. So let's move into non-VA lending. What happens? The appraiser looks at it from a purely business standpoint and says, you need me more than I need you. Fee goes up. So all of those situations come into play. And then what's the last thing? You don't want to just simply make a practice of always going to an AVM. Well, we all know the fallacies in that. Now, not that an AVM doesn't have its place, because I agree that it does, but it's not in 100% of the lending or mortgage lending out there. So we end up with just not good situations when we have no one in the county. Or this can happen. We have one appraiser in a county. That appraiser has either a long-time illness or a 6-week vacation in Europe. Good for you, appraiser, but what does that do? Everyone's now waiting on you to come back. So we need to be deep in appraisers. Now, how many deep? That's not my call. But I guarantee you, 1 is not deep. 0 is not deep. We need to augment that.
Yeah, I think that really hits on challenges that I see, and not even just in the residential space. I was talking with a representative from the Department of Transportation in our state, and same thing, that they're seeing people retire, they're seeing people out for extended periods, and there's just not a lot of alternative appraisers to fall back on. And so I think this is a challenge nationwide. I think it's one that your approach and that the practicum is really hitting on in a way that is unique. It's kind of fun to learn about with Mark. I mean, I think this has been an approach that, though I've known, it's something about, not known it well, and what you're doing and the light I think that you're shedding on how appraisers can get experience in this way is really, I love it. I really appreciate it, Melissa. We want to be sensitive to your time, and frankly, you've probably got people needing you that we don't want to be holding you up from. You've got too much knowledge to distill to be wasting too much time with us. But anything, as we look to close up, is there anything else you'd like to share about the program that maybe we haven't hit on before we wrap things up here?
Well, at the moment, I can't think of anything. As soon as we get off, I'll think, why didn't I say that? I think the most important thing is to emphasize that it's effective. Okay? Is there room for improvement? There's always room for improvement. It doesn't matter how many years. Just take my practicum. We'll run. There's always room for improvement. Why? Because in essence, it's like continuing education. When the market changes, when the methodology improves, changes, whatever, we stay abreast on it. And that's the same with this practicum. It's not stagnant. It is not stagnant. You'll find that in USPAC. It says, hey, and it says it better than this. Don't be stagnant. Grow, grow. Okay, that's how this practicum and any other practicum that may be developed will need to stay on the leading edge and grow. But I think the most important thing, Mark and Jeff, is that it's effective. And if you talk to those that have been through this, they will tell you, I was afraid to get in the field, but when I realized how much I know, let me tell you what I did. This was a testing ground. I teach CE, as you know, and I do a lot of on-site CE because I'm a high proponent of let's all get in the same room and learn from each other. I will have my trainees are required, my students in my program, when I'm teaching on-site, you're there. But I like to move them into one little section. And I will tell them, don't speak. You're here to listen. Now, why do I tell them that? Because there are situations that have come up over and over and over that my folks could have said, I got the answer. Let me talk about that one, Melissa. But I don't want the seasoned appraisers, the 10, 20, 30-year appraisers to say, well, look at these smart alecks in the back of the room, thinking they know more than we do. Right? So they're there to listen. Now, what do we talk about after? I'll say, okay, X situation, what was the answer? Well, almost everybody's going to discuss. Okay? Now, what I did in one, I had one of my licensing board members that was in this particular class. And I said, when I got to USPAC, totally USPAC questions, I said, okay, that totally USPAC. And I'd ask a question, not getting a right answer. I'd ask my folks in the back. Bam, they hit on it repeatedly throughout the day. After the CE, 7-hour CE, the board member came and said, did you see who was answering all the USPAC questions? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. See, not only do they know it, but they can put it into practice. So I think that's what I want to leave with both of you today, is that this is effective. Now, it's a lot of work. Yes, it is. I've had people tell me how many times, but you put too much time into that. I'm investing in people, right? I'm investing in people. And they are making my profession better.
Well, I think it's wonderful work, that you're doing, Melissa. And it seems that whatever the pathway, I have yet to meet an appraiser that said, yeah, that was easy. Becoming an appraiser wasn't that big of a deal. It just didn't take much time or effort. And I think this practicum approach that you're taking, I mean, one of the things I'm hearing that I really like is that it's marrying the theoretical with the practical. You're on the ground working together, but there's some structure around how you get kind of the water to the end of the row, so to speak, as far as taking what you learn in the qualifying education, applying it in practice. exciting to see where this goes. And, we may just have to have you back as there are updates to the program you're doing or other insights, to be gained. But just want to express great appreciation for the time that you've taken away from your students and those depending on you to come and share some light with us and our audience on what this additional pathway to filling the experience requirement is in various states around the country. So a big thank you for joining us and for your time today.
Thank you. I have enjoyed it. Very nice to have met you, Mark and Jeff. Seeing you in person once again, always good. Okay.
Love it. Well, thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.